Just remember that. There's a small bit of a needle there.
Come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Listen between them, and now they're really roaring. And I can tell you, there won't be a cow milk in County Clare for at least a week.
There were 22 seconds of injury time left when Ryan Wiley carried the ball into the Tyrone half. His team were a point down and he saw a gap. Two Tyrone players were standing near the referee, Niall Cullen, and beside them were Monaghan players. But all of them were walking away from where the ball was, as if the ball didn't matter. Ryan Wiley Rory Beggan is to Ryan Wiley's right. He sees a channel wide open and he sprints, but Wiley doesn't give the ball to Rory Beggan because he now himself accelerates. Suddenly, he's right up against the 45-metre line, and it's obvious that Monaghan have a brilliant chance to get an equaliser and to force extra time in a classic Ulster Championship match. Wiley slips the ball to Carl O'Connell. He brushes past a harmless Tyrone tackle. He changes the angle of his run and he slips the ball to Kieran Duffy. And Carl O'Connell keeps going. And this matters because he keeps Con Kilpatrick busy. Duffy almost immediately, now he has the ball, slips a hand pass to Ryan O'Toole. Ryan O'Toole is in his first Ulster Championship match and he's made it up the field from wing back. He catches the ball on the Tyrone 14-metre line about 10 metres to the right of the goals. He takes 2 steps and he looks up. He takes those steps. And he has 2 choices. Does he drive the ball over the bar or does he hand pass the ball across the goal for Carl Gallagher to slap it into the net? And he does neither. He takes neither choice. Instead, he cuts the most beautiful right-footed shot low and left of Niall Morgan. Behind Morgan, the net dances a little jig, and Ryan O'Toole has scored a goal that he will carry with him for the rest of his life. Tyrone are beaten, and Monaghan have found a new way to defy the odds. We are 2 weeks in, and this championship is already great fun. You're very welcome to the Irish Examiner Gaelic Football Show, which we are recording just after Monaghan have knocked Tyrone out of the championship. My name is Paul Rouse, and I'm joined today by the former Mayo footballer and manager James Horan, by the former Fermanagh footballer and fated manager of many teams, most recently Watty Graham's the Glen, Malachy O'Rourke, and by Maurice Brosnan of the Examiner. James, what would you have coached Ryan O'Toole to do as he received that ball in his hand in the dying embers of a game?
Well, I thought about this afterward, because it was that situation, 1 down, through on goal. I think he was playing cornerback at the time. Niall Morgan, you thought, had the near post covered, so you were looking at it. But my philosophy always was, rightly or wrongly, there's only one time in a game, and you can ask any players that I've coached this, one time the game should hand pass it over the bar, and that's when you're 3 points up and it's the last play of the game to make it a 2-score game. Other than that, you go for goal. You go for goal.
No exceptions. You go for goal, no exceptions.
You go for goal. Because I found through various games, etc. If and I'd be interested in Malachy's on this. I can see Malachy looking up to the sky here. But if you have a team or players that aren't sure or if they should go for something or not go for it, or commit or not commit, I think you have a bit of doubt there, and when doubt comes, a bit of tentative comes, and they mightn't go for the jugular. That 3 points in the game. Look, it depends on timing and everything else. But my philosophy always was, goal chance, you go for it. You back yourself and you take it, because I think that's the mindset you need in games, that you're going for your courageous opportunities there. You go for the maximum, etc. As I said, the only exception is last play of the game and you're 3 up, you hand pass it over to make sure. That'd be my take.
Malachy.
Yeah, I can understand James' point of view, and exactly what he's saying is you don't get that many of those sort of 1v1 opportunities or that many clear-cut goal chances in a game. And when you do get them, you want to have that sort of mindset that you really go for the jugular. Now, having said all that, when I saw him going through, my immediate instinct was pop it over the bar, and you get yourself extra time. Now I saw him doing it in one of the other National League games a wee while back. He did exactly the same thing and scored a very similar goal. I actually heard some of the commentators after the game too actually wondering, did he know what the score was? The game was so frenetic, and he might have actually thought that they were a point behind. Isn't that right? They were a point behind. And he made have thought that there were actually two, that a point was no good. So I don't know. Only he knows that. But I still was surprised if he did know the score that he went for the goal. But there's no doubt that he got a massive reward for it.
So I'm delighted for Ryan O'Toole. He played for UCD last year in the Sigerson Cup. Totally committed. A really honest, hard-working, plays for the team footballer. I would be astonished if he didn't know what the score was. I'm sure he went for it, and I can't believe he went for it. I'll be straight about it. I can't believe it. I take your point, James. I do take your point, but to me, there were two options. If you watch this back in the video, there was a hand pass ball across to where Gallagher is, and it's a slap in goal. But because he's been left by, I think, McNamee, maybe by Hampsey, but most likely McNamee. But he totally did Niall Morgan. I'm astonished for all. We're done twice down those angles. I thought the first goal. I actually cannot believe that O'Hanlon was let do what he did for the first goal by Myler. Like, Myler just got totally done up for the first goal.
The possibility, Paul, and I haven't watched it back, but I remember thinking at the time, I think it was Niall Sludden was actually the last defender. And Niall Sludden actually committed himself slightly towards Kieran Duffy.
Yes,
and
for the hand pass.
He did. And that then Ryan O'Toole actually found himself, usually going in like that, there's somebody putting you under pressure and you've doubt in your mind. He was actually completely in on goal. So it wasn't a case, he could have tapped it over the bar and over, but there was no one putting him under pressure. So it could have been just that made up his mind from that there was nobody putting him under pressure, that it was just a shot that he felt he could execute because there was no one really. Because once Niall Sludden went towards the ball, it left Kieran Duffy was able to put the ball in his path, and he was through on goal then with nobody, and there was nobody coming towards him either, really.
When Tyrone looked back at that clip though of that goal, there'll be some shouting, I would say, on Tuesday night when they watch that back. They were a point up, right? And Rory Beggan came a long, long way with that ball, unopposed. And then, as you said, he had the Carl O'Connell and Drew Wiley. He had a lot of options. But if you freeze that, and from my recollection, if you freeze that frame, I think when Carl passed it, maybe to Kieran, or even just before that, there's 5 Tyrone players standing, and some of them are going away from the ball.
Absolutely.
They're not covering the risk. They're deviating to go man to man, which is very unlike Tyrone because they're very good at shifting across to cut off the risk. It's like they were out of juice and they stopped it because it was like, as Malachy said, it was one of the easiest sort of walk-in opportunities you'll get in a game. It was a free hand pass into a free man. Almost. So Tyrone will not be happy with that. How the lead up to that goal was shocking.
Yeah, and there was, and I don't know, I remember who it was, but one of the Monaghan players actually running towards Kieran Duffy, and as you say, James, the Tyrone defender went with him. And that left the space there.
Malachy, it was Carl O'Connell who after he had shipped the ball on to Kieran Duffy kept going, right? And when he kept going, he engaged Con Kilpatrick, who stopped Con Kilpatrick going on the cover across. He just got a hand on him. He just slowed him beautifully.
And I think, Paul, there might have been someone in the full forward line actually came out towards them as well, and it took that defender, one of the full backs, out of that space as well. Took it, and probably as James is saying that if he would have just said, "Here, let him go," but they were probably thinking at the time, stopping the point rather than they probably weren't really thinking of a goal at that stage.
Yeah, no, agree. Morris, what did you think of the goal?
I think it's a ultimate testament to there's little intricacies you can see, and as you've mentioned already, we're talking straight away after the game here. But if you were to freeze frame, that's from a kick out. Tyrone's kick a point to go one up. The kick out, it's a free. Beggan has the ball in his 45. The last player, the player closest to Monaghan's goal there is Kieran Duffy. He's at the bottom of the frame in the left corner, and that means his run is delayed. So he's the last player. He's the last. So you've got 14 players in front of him, and that's where Tyrone's priority is. You're trying to engage all those 14 players, and he just hugs the touchline, and slowly but surely, every other player is starting to be engaged, and he just needs to carry that run. But it's a deep run. It's also, I think, it's a testament to. I think this was a team. Like, it definitely seemed that Ryan O'Toole said after the game, they talked about taking their chances and going for the throat. There was an unbelievable moment about 10 minutes before that, and a genuinely astonishing moment where Monaghan are down. Jack McCarron wins a free in the 13-yard line and goes short to Conor McManus to try and force a goal. McManus, not only is that shot saved, Beggan misses the 45. Like that, to me, I think it's an ultimate testament that if you were to pull a team from this game, Monaghan, they did not blink. Like their kick out was, they kept going long. Even when they got picked off for that goal in the first half, they stuck with going long. They lost 5 kickouts in the first half. They only lost 1 in the second half, despite the fact they stuck with what they were doing. They kept McCarron and McManus up, even when it wasn't necessarily clicking. They took their goal chance when it was there. They just did not blink. And that is, to me, that goal summed up why Monaghan won that game.
Malachy, you were 7 years in that dressing room or thereabouts. What are they like?
They're brilliant fellas, and that was one thing, that I would have been very, very surprised if they wouldn't have come out in the second half and put in a big shift. And I know in the first half they didn't play particularly well, and I suppose the wind had a part to play in that as well, and they were struggling a wee bit on the long kickouts and things like that. But and don't forget, Monaghan have a number of players missing. Niall Cairns, who'd be very key for them at this stage. Ryan McAnespie are both away travelling this year. Darren Hughes had an injury. Desi Ward, who's a major player for them at the minute, wasn't able to play today either. So they've a lot of players missing. So they nearly had an excuse at halftime to say this isn't our day. But I know Vinny Corey and I know the boys around them. I know the players, and that just sums them up. They wouldn't they wouldn't. Just accept that, and they came out and fought for it. And I thought the second half, I thought their kick-outs were much better. I thought they created a lot more space. And Rory, once you create the space for Rory, he'll pick you out. And I thought it gave them a massive platform in the second half that they didn't have in the first. And then again, they started running at the Tyrone defence, and I thought Tyrone, committed a lot of frees. I think that Monaghan maybe scored 10 frees. Which is big, and I thought Tyrone struggled when they ran at them,
Yeah, and I kept an article that Carol Kane, I think brilliant journalist, with the news. I read an article which I kept. He did a profile of you, Malachy, a few years ago, and he talked about how you had given the Monaghan players a card with a Zulu chant on it before, which said, I won't attempt the Zulu on it, but it says, "Are you afraid of them?" No, we are not afraid. We want them. And that seems to me to be the way Monaghan went at the second half.
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose in many ways, they'd nothing to lose either, and that,
Did you think they were done at halftime? Not allowing for the fact that the character there, but did you think they just weren't quite good enough?
I didn't really, to be honest with you, because I felt, I wasn't at the game. I was watching it. I wasn't at the game, but there did seem to be a fairly strong wind, and Monaghan looked to be. They were very efficient in the first half. So even though Tyrone had a lot of possession, they didn't really pull away, and you still felt that Monaghan were in the game, and that I have to say, being honest about it, I thought they were going to have to put in a big performance second half. I thought Tyrone looked to be, they were obviously 5 up, and they looked to be going well, and they were on top in a number of sectors, and the forwards were looking sharp. But I suppose it didn't surprise me that Monaghan came back, but they still had a lot of work to do, and it's all right saying that now. But I thought a lot of aspects of the game was much better in the second half, and then their energy levels, their intensity levels, and everything else. lifted, which I wasn't surprised about, because I just felt going in at half time they wouldn't have been happy with that aspect of the game, and that they would certainly be coming out with a wee bit more fire about them, you know.
James, by contrast, what did you think of Tyrone in the second half?
Yeah, I suppose
where did it go wrong for Tyrone?
Yeah, I think overall it was a brilliant game. It was a brilliant game to watch. I thought Tyrone in the first half were excellent. Their pace transition, everything they tried to do, there was no dead time on the ball. They were moving the ball on. There was no stand-up solos. It was all very, very efficient, very effective, very fast. They should have been further ahead. I think in the first half they took a few pot shots. McCurry took a few pot shots that he normally wouldn't take. But I thought they were really good. They did tire in the second half. And as Malachy says, Monaghan's energy was very good. The runners, Conor McCarthy, when he went back to wing back, I think he caused untold damage. They didn't know what.
Great switch, just a brilliant switch.
Really good switch. That had a big impact on the game. But I do think Tyrone came out in the second half, and I might be picking on things here. I do think their attitude was different in the second half. The first 2 or 3 balls they got in the second half, I remember Michael, and it's only small things sometimes, because I think it was McKiernan got the ball. You know, this is 2 minutes into the second half, stood up, soloed with his right, soloed with his left, and overdid a pass with his left foot. I don't know if you remember this, and it sort of split two guys, and out came the Monaghan guy, and it was a sort of a rallying sort of goal. I suppose what I'm looking at there is there was no need for him to play that pass. His left foot was the wrong pass to play for that type of pass, if you know. It was like he was overindulging on the ball a little bit. And I think the 2 or 3 passes before he got it, I felt it was the same with the Tyrone players as well, that they were overindulging a little bit. They were determined to slow it down. They were determined to move it back a little bit. Whereas in the first half, they were progressive with everything that they did. The speed they attacked with, I haven't seen from a team in a long time. So I think their mindset was different in the first half. The 2 of the first attacks, I think, were really good turnovers from Monaghan, where they drove forward into them, won them. And you could feel then momentum changing, energy from Monaghan, and away it went from there. So I think there's never just one thing in a game. You know, that was the reason why there's always there's little things. But I think Monaghan were excellent in the second half. But I think Tyrone got caught at the beginning of the second half where they were maybe overindulged a little bit.
Maurice, is there anything in the numbers in the game or in the reading of the game that you saw that would stack that up?
Talking immediately after the game about numbers is a fool's errand, really. But I do think if you look at scores, just generally, the fact that the Monaghan they got 1-8 after their own kick out versus 9 points. That was the key to, again, we talked about Beggan as a whole, as I thought was phenomenal. Like the kick pass he gave for the first goal. Oh,
amazing pass. Yeah, brilliant pass.
You know, like go back to that point earlier I was trying to make about the fine details within a game like this. Like that goal is just such a high level play. Like this is, when you see Inter football played like that, it really shows the potential of the game. Like he's kicking that ball into the corner. I know you can have your criticism of Moyer, Paul, but he did throw him down at least he showed him down the touchline. And you know, McNamee is standing at the edge of the square there, and 9 times out of 10 he doubles up there. He goes to the threat, but McManus sees what's happening before it's there and drifts off to the edge of the D. So he's on the outside, and if there's one man you don't want at the top of a D, it's Conor McManus. So McNamee has to go. So he vacates the square. He leaves that one area, and O'Hanlon beats his man, gets in on goal. Like it was just such a high level play. Small stuff that Monaghan did so well. You know, after the first play that you mentioned there, James, where it's a long ball in on top of Gallagher, it's turned over, they go up the other end, and it's a kick pass. Like, so there's 2 moments for me. The very first attack from Monaghan in the second half, it's kicked into the edge of the square. Gallagher competes with it. It looked like he was actually pulled there by Quinn, but it just, anyway, they went up the other end. And then there was that challenge where Hughes got he'd come off injured, where he hit that shoulder. But 2 Monaghan players were down. That was on the edge of the square on the other end of the field. One of them is Hughes. The other one is Gallagher. He's managed to make it from his own square back to the other end to get involved in that collision. I just thought that was unbelievable. Going back to this idea of their work rate. Another small thing, after O'Hanlon's goal, the next play, that's Michael McKernan kicks a long ball. He's trying to do that old play to 1-on-1 on the edge of the square. And who's shepherding Moyler out over the edge of the D? It's O'Hanlon. He's back there doing that again. Like, they were never willing to rest on their laurels. That's just kind of fine margins. So, and just to top it all off then, Paul, I do think I don't know how Beggan didn't get man of the match, lads. Like just the fact that he stuck with his kickouts. The thing about a press, to my mind, it's not really what it does about numbers. Like you can get caught up in numbers. It's what it does psychologically. Like if you, for that first goal to concede off that from going long, a lot of goalkeepers would decide, let's play this safe, let's go short, and he just does not deviate from his plan. He continues to go long. It pays off as the numbers suggest, but that's on top of what he did from play, and particularly that final goal. Like for Beggan to, I think he realised there, I don't want to carry this run off O'Connell's shoulder here because I'm actually gonna end up clogging space. So he stops dead. He stops dead as that attack is going. Like that's very intelligent play, as well as the incredible work rate and all that sort of stuff. I just thought it was a really kind of high level game. Like I couldn't speak highly enough of it.
Yeah. We got to touch on. I'm sure we will, but Conor McManus, lads. Just his, like in the first half, his free taking. I mean, it's, you can almost go out and make the team come back. Before he takes free, you just he's guaranteed to get it. Like his level is unbelievable, and just he kept them going when they were in a tight spot in the first half. He kept it ticking over. They were never that far behind. He kept it in. That free that he took, it was right on the edge of his, in the second half, right on the edge of his parameters.
He sent Beggan back, yeah.
Sent Beggan back, and that was on the sort of wrong side for a right-footed free taker, if you like. Just that little. It's only that 5 or 10 yards over, but it makes it a harder kick, and he hit that. He had to hit that full mic. But I suppose to have that confidence and belief. To stick that one over, I do think, and I know we talked about him before. I think he's a phenomenal. His accuracy is off the charts. So some performance.
Yeah, I agree with you, James. Obviously about Conor, and the one thing about that is knowing him when you saw him stand over that free, he wants that free.
Yeah,
that's the big thing. It's not a case of saying, should I leave this to someone else? Is it? He wants that, and that's the beauty of him. In that they talk about the clutch moments. The freeze. He wants to be on the ball, and he wants to take that shot. And it's not, it's oftentimes it's not that often you get that some people share that responsibility, but he never will, and that's what I suppose has made him the player he is.
And you kind of didn't doubt he was going to kick it. It was one of those that it was an extraordinary strike. Can we talk about Tyrone for a minute? We will be talking about Monaghan again before they play Derry, but let's talk about Tyrone. Malachy, what do they do now?
I suppose it was a big disappointment for him. There's no doubt about that. I obviously live in the county here, and I would have felt that they were building up a wee bit of a head of steam. And I suppose after losing to Derry last year, they would have been hoping to play them again. I suppose you'll not know until the year ends. Everybody's sort of going into the unknown a wee bit with the new structure of the championship, and Tyrone have shown before going through the back door that it actually suits them. So Tyrone now have maybe 4 or 5 weeks, and they're going to end up in exactly the same place as a lot of the other teams. So I suppose it depends on how the work in the meantime and what it does to them, mentally and everything else. But there's no doubt they'll be very disappointed the way they were. And I take James' point. And they're very small wee things, but just at the start of the second half, it looked as if they felt, we can control this game. They might have felt comfortable, and just they didn't probably expect Monaghan to come out with such ferocity, and it sort of caught them a wee bit. But they look at a number of aspects of the game. They conceded, they conceded 2-17. They weren't. They missed a lot themselves. They conceded a lot of frees, scoreable frees, and things like that. So there's an awful lot of things to have to work on. There's no doubt they have the players, they have the talent. But look at this evening now. They'll certainly have a period where they'll reflect hard on what went on, and they have to improve.
I thought it was extraordinary that they had 36 attacks and got 34 shots away out of 36 attacks, which is an incredible work on one level, but still you could see. I think the key goal was obviously the last goal was really important, but O'Hanlon's goal just really put huge doubt into the game when I think Tyrone were a bit vulnerable. Derry,
sorry, just going to come in there on Malachy's point. I think it's an interesting one. Like Tyrone conceded 10 points from frees today. right? That's correct. I think eight
More or less,
got
yeah.
8 and Jack got 2. Right, you're conceding that amount of scoreable frees with Conor McManus on the team. It's insane. If you look at a lot of those frees, Tyrone had numbers back. They had sufficient people. Like the worst thing you can do when a free taker of that caliber is on the field is give them frees in scoreable positions. So I think Tyrone's discipline in defence cost them the game ultimately with that many. I'm not sure how many Monaghan conceded. Was it maybe 3, 4, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was a low
free
number.
The free count was 13-21, I think. But how many?
Yeah,
scoreable?
yeah. So I think they conceded very few. So
Yeah.
I'm amazed that Tyrone did go very aggressive in their tackles in the first 10 or 15 minutes. They were definitely throwing down the gauntlet, and they were very strong and robust. And then the ref penalised them, but they didn't adapt to the ref and what he was blown for fouls. So that's something that definitely cost them, and they'll need to look at.
Yeah, and I would safely say there is no. I would be very, very surprised if Derry will concede that many frees against Monaghan the next day.
Yeah.
Derry will set up in a different way. They won't be chasing. They'll be facing up, and Monaghan will know that they'll make it so much more difficult for Monaghan to get scores. I thought Tyrone were left themselves very open at times, and it's they conceded a lot of frees that I certainly think Derry wouldn't do that.
I liked what Eamon Fitzmaurice very early in the game said how much he was enjoying it, and then later on in the game he was just talking about how there'd been an abandonment of all structure in the defences, no sweepers. It was just two teams going about. Are you impressed with Derry, Malachy?
Yeah, Derry are moving very well. Those boys are playing with each other a long time now. They know each other's game inside out. Their defence is very strong. They're playing a sweeper, and then Conor Lass is if you like a sort of a holding midfielder or a defensive midfielder. And so their defence is very strong. And then going forward, particularly now when a lot of teams have packed defence, Derry's team play, their connection in the forward line is very good. They're creating scores for each other. They're not depending on, I still thought Tyrone in the first half, even though they're going well, they're still depending on great individual scores. Like Dara Canavan scored a few great scores. Darren McCurry. Derry's not necessarily getting that type of score. They're working through the hands. There's 2 or 3 different players moving, and someone's popping over a score. I'm impressed with the way their forward line is moving and playing as a team, and they're going to be hard to beat.
Do you see them? Would you have been concerned, say for example, the manner in which they lost against them? Would that rung alarm bells with you, or is that just one of those things you wipe on?
Against Dublin?
Yeah, in the league final.
Yeah. Again, I suppose the way they concede the goals, they wouldn't be happy with that. It's funny that they conceded 2 goals yesterday, and they conceded goals against Dublin, and nearly all of them were Conor Glass had went off the field.
Yeah.
And Conor is definitely the fella who anchors that. And it's something that a lot of people maybe don't necessarily see. And obviously I have the benefit of him playing with the club. And he does massive work. He's a tremendous worker, but he reads things very well. He's not looking to go back there to do the flashy things. He just gets in the right place. He cuts out things. He covers for other people. He gets a hand in, and he does an awful lot of that work, which is massive in defence. The other thing, Chrissy McKeag didn't play against Dublin. I noticed yesterday, the 2 goals conceded yesterday, Chrissy was doing a man-marking job on Ulton Kelm, and he was actually pulled out on both of those occasions when the goals were scored. So it's probably something that they wouldn't be happy about, and they'll look at again. But certainly they're going well. But look at this; it's going to be the beat Monaghan last year in the semi-final, but they got 3 or 4 goals. So Monaghan, I'm sure, will be looking forward as well. So it's a set up for a great game.
Who's the best baller in
where in Derry? Sorry, Paul, you're breaking up.
Yeah, sorry. Who's the best footballer in Derry?
In Derry.
Yeah.
So, Paul, such a question. Well, look at any of the Glen boys will do for me.
Yeah. All right, well, come at this from a different angle. Who is the best footballer in Ulster?
Oh, yeah, that's making it even harder. I'll go back to the Derry one.
If you go back to the Derry one then. Get yourself in trouble.
Well, I suppose in Derry, the only lads who are on the panel at the minute are Conor Glass, Ethan Doherty, Conleth McGuckin, and Kieran McFall. And Kieran's an exceptional player, and hopefully he'll get to show that as the year goes on. Conor and Ethan are two different types of player. Ethan, is a really dynamic player. He's a young lad. He's getting better all the time. But I suppose at the minute, Conor, the way he's playing, and hopefully, if he can stay injury free, I think he's young and he's really ambitious, and is trying to improve all the time. So he's certainly one to top about at the minute. But here, look, there's a lot of players in Derry, and there's even more in Ulster.
You dance very nicely around that, Malachy. I'm not going to try again. There's no point.
I reckon we out of that one.
We will be talking in a few minutes about kind of a series of matches next weekend, where obviously the Munster Championship, the Leinster Championship, and the Connacht Championship, we'll be talking about all of those games. But before we leave Ulster, we want to talk about Down Donegal and Cavan Armagh, which is sitting at the other side. I think there's two fantastic matches in prospect there, and I can't think of anywhere better to be next Saturday evening than in Breffni Park in Cavan for that game against Armagh. How do you see those going, Maurice?
That could be set up to be a thriller. It actually was a thriller. I went to a replay. Was that 2018? The year before Darren McVeety went away, he got man of the match when they bet him in the replay. Two teams that could match up very nicely with each other. I think we'll ideally see a similar game to what we saw today. I said it last week. I think Armagh have no excuses this year. I think they're, in terms of raw talent on paper, they're as good as what's out there. So I'll say Armagh. It's a dangerous game tipping Armagh and Ulster, but I just think there's no reason that they shouldn't be. If they're at the top level, there's no reason they shouldn't be in an Ulster final. Yeah,
how do you see those games, Malachy?
Yeah, two very interesting games. Armagh certainly, I suppose, from their point of view, there would be on what would be considered the easier side of the draw this year. And I suppose they'd really be looking to make the breakthrough. The league ended up disappointingly for them. But you would think if Rian O'Neill, I'm not sure what the situation was here, if they'd Rian O'Neill back, Charlie O'Burns was missing the last day as well. If they've all those back, if they're a fully fit team, you still would think they should come through that game against Cavan. Now, Cavan obviously had a good enough league campaign as well, but Armagh would look to be further down the road in redevelopment and that, so it would certainly be disappointing for Armagh if they didn't come out of that. But look at it should be a good game. Down in Donegal's an interesting one as well, in that I suppose this time last year you would have been expecting Donegal, but things haven't turned out that well for them. Obviously, Ryan McHugh has gone from the panel now as well, and down, they're Conor Laverty is over on the 20s as well. They're going well. There's a lot of young lads coming through. There seems to be a good vibe about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Down won that. So but they're very hard to call. But if you had to ask me, I'd nearly go maybe for Down Armagh gnarly.
Can I ask you about this? I was asking James a few weeks ago about in the off season being approached to manage teams, and James finally agreed that 3 or 4 teams had been after him in the winter. He was very modest. I'm certain it's far more than that. But how many counties were looking for you to manage them last winter?
No, look at it. There would have been.
That doesn't sound like a number, Malachy.
No, I don't honestly know, but was I suppose there
was Donegal one of the counties? Did Donegal ask you to manage them last winter?
I did talk to Donegal. I didn't go for an interview or anything else. I did talk to them out of courtesy. But I just didn't think, it was the right fit at the time. And look, I was involved with Glenn, and we were working very hard there, and it would have disrupted that. So I wasn't really interested in going anywhere at the time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really going to be a runner,
And could you see yourself going back into that world?
Yeah, look at always. I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge of it. I love, when you get a group of players who are hungry to improve, and that's the whole fun of it. Is trying to improve them and trying to get that collective mentality among the group and so on. But so no, I wouldn't rule it out. There's no point in me saying I would and then suddenly appearing somewhere. But no, I'm happy where I am at the minute. I'm really enjoying the club football, and the boys are great, giving a great effort. So that's I'm happy there for the time being.
I've in preparing for you coming on today, I went back through the records, and there's no easy way to put this, but your record is phenomenal. At everywhere you've gone, you've won. So, but I want to ask you the question from a different angle. Is there any county you'd really like to manage?
No, I look at it. To be honest, there's nothing that jumps out at me like that or anything else. It's look at, and I'm sure James is the same. I really appreciate anybody coming on and feeling that I would have the necessary attributes to manage. It's a big job nowadays managing county teams, and it's a massive responsibility. Hey, and you have to be ready for it. But I also think you have to look at it and see is it the right fit? What has gone before? What's their aspirations? And so there's a lot of things you have to weigh up before you'd jump in anyway, So, but it's no. So to answer your question, there is nobody, that I'm a Fermanagh man, and obviously, I did manage Fermanagh, and it's, I suppose your own county is special, but after that, there's no one stands.
Yeah,
out.
it's to find the right. It's to find the right fit.
Yeah.
James, to look at those before we move out of Ulster, to look at those games. How do you see those games?
Yeah, they're interesting games. Armagh have been critical enough of Armagh and the sort of straitjacket they've put themselves in over recent weeks and towards the end of the league. So I do think they have the players, though. I think if they can be a bit more courageous in how they play, I think Armagh could be very, very strong. But I don't know if they're going to be, or they can release themselves that quickly. So Cavan at home will be tricky. They'll be well organised with James Burke up there. They'll be fit and ready to go. So that could be a very close game, very, very close game, and with Cavan possibly sneaking it. The other one, I think, are Donegal going to find something in the rubble, I suppose, in the mess that's there? Is there something that they can maybe pin their cause on to try and get something out of this year? Ryan McHugh, as Malik said, he's just a phenomenal player and a massive loss, another hit really for the team. So I don't know, can they round it together to go against what will be a fast running, young, youthful team that Down, that feel of that the county's on the up is there. So I think Down will come through that.
Yeah, if we look, we'll do a wrap at the end where we give our predictions on all of these matches. But I want to go now to Roscommon and Galway. James, what's it like for those people who've never been there? What's the hype like in Roscommon for a really serious Connacht Championship match?
Well, they did the surface up a few years ago. It's a beautiful pitch to play on now, the Hyde. There's a lovely, that spongy sort of spring to it. It's a really good surface. it wasn't always thus. You know, you can remember photos of. I remember Alan Dillon going for a ball in the 211 or 12, and it just hit a puddle, and he couldn't get it up off the ground. But it's a fantastic ground now, and the dressing rooms are underneath the stand, and it's boisterous, it's noisy all around, and look at Roscommon have some supporters over there. Anytime we've gone there, it's been a battle, absolutely battle. They're a tough team to play against. They're a good team, and they've got a sprinkling of very strong players, strong character, strong physically. You know, i.e. the Dailies throughout the team that make them a very solid outfit. So it's a tough place to go. For sure, but that's going to be a fascinating game with Galway. I think if Galway have their players, and Phil, I don't know, and Maurice, you might have a better handle. Is Killian McDade? Is he back? Is he around? Is he going to play much this year? If Killian McDade is back into the middle of the field, Damien Comer's got another 3 weeks since the league final. He'll be fitter. Shane Walsh will be even sharper, and Rob Finnerty as well, who wasn't fit going into the league final, will be a bit fitter, and Johnny Heaney will be back to play probably a full game.
Patrick Kelly on his way back too.
And Patrick Kelly as well. Like that, I think Galway's front seven, if you like, and including their midfield, front seven, front eight, are really, really strong. And if they're fit and healthy, I think they'll be confident going over to the height that they'll take Roscommon.
Maurice?
I think this will be a dog of a game. I think it'll be the opposite of what we saw today. Last year was probably, I think that was an anomaly. Both the league final and the game of British Stadium. But you go back over the record of Galway Roscommon, particularly in the height. I remember the year before, you bet them in kind of 2021. I'd say Galway played Roscommon. It was one of the worst games I've seen in a long time. The weather was atrocious too. But I think Roscommon will look back on that kind of final last year and see how Shane Walsh carved them up and the damage Jamie Comer did, and said that's priority number 1 and number 2 there. We have to circle off that. So I think this game could be one for the purists, so to speak.
So and James, in answer to that about players, I think Killian McDade will play. I think Patrick Kelly will probably be back soon enough. I think their panel has come together. They're coming together really, really well for these couple of weeks, and I think it's a huge game for Galway for doing. How do you find Galway, Malachy?
Yeah, I was very impressed with them during the National League, and that they obviously had players missing and so on. But I thought they were playing well, and knowing that they were going to improve as the year went on. I saw them in the last game against Kerry, and I thought they were very impressive that day. Again, I thought some of the scores that worked and the way they were linking up as a team was very impressive. But then I was down at the league final against Meath, and I was very disappointed in them that day. I just didn't think they got going at all, and it sort of maybe threw them up in a different light. But I would imagine that you'll see the best of them. I think that they will have improved since last year. They've added a few different players in, and I think they'll be thereabouts. In the final reckoning Sunday could be, as the boys are saying, I'm sure it'll be a dogfight, and there might be that much pretty football. But again, as James says there, if you have Damien Comer on the edge of the square, if you have Shane Walsh, maybe playing a wee bit closer to goals where he really causes danger. And then Matthew Tierney, who again didn't really get going in the league final, but I thought he's nearly the standout player in the National League. He was really, he's a great all-round footballer, showed great leadership skills. And then if Killian McDade's back in the middle of the field, they've found a couple of new defenders as well, and they'll look as if they're really going to be thereabouts this year.
And I think Roscommon have managed to produce some brilliant players in the last while, and I see their younger players. I know Dara Craig's been injured, but Ben O'Carroll, just absolutely excellent in the league, and again against Mayo in a kind of a thankless job. He did an unbelievable amount of work against Mayo, and the if anybody actually wants to see how to play selflessly as an inside forward, the video of Ben O'Carroll against Mayo it pays watching. It pays watching on this, and I will say to anyone who hasn't been to Hyde Park to a championship match that it's a great place to go. To just for atmosphere. I went down the train there when I was 18. We got the train out from Tullamore, myself and my friend Pádraig Gallagher, fairly green on the way down, and it was a challenge to make it back, but it was it's a great place. It's a great place to go to football. On the previous day, and we spoke a lot about New York last week, but in the other provinces, Kerry and Dublin make their seasonal championship bows. Malachy, how are they your tips for the All-Ireland final, or are you deviating from this?
It's as I said before, it's sort of, we're going into the unknown this year a wee bit, and Kerry play Tipperary this weekend. You expect them to get through that. They'll play the winners of Limerick or Clare in a Munster final. You'd expect them to get through that. And, I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but going on previous years, they've been able to navigate those teams fairly comfortably, which means they're then going into the league format, if you like, without expending that much energy. On the other hand, you might have teams like, for example, Monaghan put in a big performance today to beat Tyrone. If they want to get to an Ulster final, they'll have to put in a massive performance again to beat Derry. If they wanted to win the Ulster title, they would have to put in a massive performance again to beat whoever comes through the other side. Now, Kerry are then sitting, waiting, and so it's very much about this year. Are which teams get it right? That's great to come through like that there if you don't pick up injuries and you're battle hard and so on. But if you're picking up injuries along the way and that's affecting you, some of the teams are able to get through easier, and they're sitting there with 3 games to play in the league format, and then that's still only taking you through to an All-Ireland quarterfinal. So there's an awful lot more football to be played this year, and I suppose it remains to be seen who judges it right and what's the right way to go about it. And I suppose we'll not know that to the end of the year. But getting back, I still think Dublin look very good. I think they look as if they're improving all the time. And I just get the sense from the outside that they just are like a team that really feel this is a year that they have to get back to the top of the three, and you see that the players who are coming back, obviously Paul Manny and Jack McCaffrey, even Stephen Cluxton back. And there's a sense just that I just think with James McCarthy as captain as well, he has been a phenomenal player, probably the best player pound for pound in Ireland this last 10 years. And I just without knowing or anything else, I just get a feeling that those players would love to win an All-Ireland with him as captain. So I just think there's a lot of reasons why Dublin will be very hard to beat. And obviously then when it comes to Croke Park, it's their experience of playing there and their calmness and just their composure on the biggest days in front of the biggest crowds, that has to be a massive advantage as well. And they're so used to that. Nearly all of their team has went through that before, knows how to do it. I think that counts for an awful lot come to the later stages of the championship as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? This idea of those guys who are all in their 30s. Dublin are going to field a team when it comes down to the business end of the championship that's going to include a lot of guys, possibly up to 10 guys who are in their 30s, which is significant on one level. But then if you look at Monaghan today, Carl O'Connell, Conor McManus, at least in their mid-30s, 36, 37, 35. And that's
Wiley Hughes.
Wiley Hughes, Darren Hughes. It shows you the capacity. And I know this is your background is as a PE teacher, and I know you have a lot of expertise in that area. Would you worry for those guys in their 30s in Croke Park in the intensity of championship when it comes down to it?
I don't really think so. Again, I suppose it depends on their lead up to it. That's what I'm saying. if you pick up an Darren went off injured today, and it depends now over the next couple of weeks how much training Darren is able to get, and that's I suppose that's the danger. Teams that maybe have an easier route through will be able to tailor that better and nearly make sure that their big players are all there and in good health at the right time of the year. Some of the teams maybe going through Ulster who are keen to win Ulster. There's no doubt it's a harder route through, and that might take a toll as time goes on. But again, we don't know that, and only time will tell. But certainly, if you pick up injuries, it could have an effect. The thing about the older boys, I think all those boys now are looking after themselves so well. I would imagine the numbers they're posting and their GPS and everything else is probably no different now than it was 7 or 8 years ago. So I wouldn't expect it to be any real negative for them, to be honest.
Yeah, and in terms of pulling that together, what we're going to do now is we're going to go around the matches that are being played next week, and we're going to call winners in all of these games. And we will start with the Leinster Championship, which is obviously has some matches in it. Well, at least one match that we shouldn't struggle to call. So all of these matches are on Sunday afternoon of next weekend, which is quite traditional in terms of how to do this. So Dublin, Laois, Maurice are playing in Portlaoise next Sunday at 3:30. Who are you shouting for there? Who are you calling there? I won't say who are you shouting for. Who are you calling in that one?
Dublin.
James.
Dublin by a long way.
Malachy, I think we'll agree on that one. Maurice, Kildare, Wicklow. How are you thinking about this? I was listening to Oisín actually on the GA social this week, and Thomas Niblock asked him a great question. He asked him, was it a winnable game? And Oisín just took 2 beats, and he said, yes, it is a winnable game. Do you think this is a game that Wicklow will win, Maurice?
No, I don't. I think it is definitely winnable, and if the same Kildare that turned up in some of their league games, particularly against Derry, turns up, you could see Wicklow exploiting it. But if Kildare ranting about them, I think this has been a lovely block to get a bit of work done, put right what went wrong in the league. I keep going back to their trust in their I feel like you say the same thing about teams like Donegal and Armagh, but on paper they have so much talent, and I just think you have to put your faith in that.
James?
Yeah, something not working with Kildare, not connecting, or something's wrong for them to be so up and down during the league. But as Maurice said, I do think Kildare have a lot of really good players. So in this one, regardless, I think they'll pull through. Yeah.
Malachy, how do you read Kildare? What way do you look at them?
Yeah, just the same as the other boys. You do looking as a big county, they seem to have a lot of talented players, but for whatever reason, they don't seem to be fulfilling their potential the way you would feel. But I do, and Oisín has done good work in Wicklow and's got them. But we would still imagine that it would be a massive upset if Wicklow beat Kildare. So I would still fancy Kildare to come through that one.
Yeah, I would too. Okay, the Westmeath against Louth, Maurice.
That's the pick of the games in Leinster for me. I think that's a really interesting game. There's a lot of talk about. I know Louth fans got pretty worked up about the coverage afforded them by RTE, and they would lay claim, perhaps rightly, to being the second best team in the province. This is their chance to prove it. Now, I think, despite all that, their record in Leinster is not good. I think they've won. Is it 2 games in the last 5 years? They bet Carlow. They put 5 goals past Carlow last year, and they bet Wexford maybe in 2019. They actually brought Offaly to extra time 1 year as well, Paul.
Yeah, in Navan, yeah.
Yeah, but beyond that, they haven't had a good record. On the flip side, then Westmeath, I think it's kind of time to put the foot down. I know they're Talented Cup winners and they're automatically qualified, but even still, you're a 4th seed at that. The interesting about this is there's going to be a collision of styles. Like Westmeath, I remember interviewing Lorcan Dolan after the Talented Cup final last year, and he spoke very openly about how drilled they were for goals. He actually said that when Roland Wallace scored that goal against Offaly, it was like a sigh of relief within the dressing room, because they've been telling them for weeks, just keep making that run, and eventually it will pay off, that they just drill that over and over again. I think they scored 14 or 15 goals in the league this year. And then you've got Louth, who on the flip side don't concede goals. They're right title. So, and all that said, I'll go for Westmeath.
James?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very tight. Louth, obviously, on the up with Mickey, and we've talked about them over the weeks. Westmeath, it's time to get going. I don't know, their qualification for the All Ireland, what it did to them, or did it impact them, or did they, take things for granted a bit during the leagues? But it's time, so you'd expect them to put in a massive performance, and Louth will keep them really honest. They know they need to play at their best to beat Louth. So my sneaking suspicion that Westmeath might come firm.
Malachy.
Yeah, again, it's a tricky one to call, and probably, as Maurice says, it is a very much a clash of styles. The one thing I would say about Louth is that they've got used to playing that way. They've been doing it for the last couple of years. Since Mickey and Gavin have been down there. I just have a sneaking suspicion that Louth could win it. I think that they'll be set up, very strong defensively. Westmeath will find it hard to break them down, and then they might be able to catch them on the counter attack and that sort of thing. So I just think maybe Louth might come through that one.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one, Malachy. And now, Maurice, we will talk about the actual pick of the games in Leinster this weekend, which is the Meath Offaly clash in the Maracana and Tullamore. Maurice, how do you see this one going?
Another similar thing looking at Meath, a similar thing to Westmeath. Actually, they are really reliant on goals, that they're going to press for that. It sounds like Offaly probably dropped off a small bit against Leinster and weren't as willing to get him. I have a sneak suspicion that I think Offaly will win this game. You'll be devastated to hear, Paul, because you've got an awful habit of tipping against them on this podcast.
James, I'll come back to that in a second.
Yeah, Offaly at home will be. You'd expect them to be very strong and determined and dogged. Meath, not sure where they are. The league can start off very well, and obviously Colin was trying to bring in a different style, a different approach, all that kind of stuff. Is that embedded enough now? Have they changed that in the last few weeks to try and have a go at championship? I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns about Meath, whereas I think we know what we're going to see off Offaly. So home championship game, I have sneaky feeling that Offaly could take that.
Malachy.
Yeah, again, Meath, it's been a very disappointing campaign for them. They started off well. I saw them in a couple of games, and just as James saying there, Colin was very much wanted to play a more expansive game and kicking the ball a lot, and that certainly didn't work. With teams setting up very well defensively, and they were caught out. I watched the Derry game in particular, and Dublin as well, and they didn't. It just wasn't working for them. I would still expect it's a big game for Meath, and I just think that they have the talent there to be able to beat Offaly, and I think it's one that they really have to win. So I just think that Meath it might sneak that one, although it's certainly not a foregone conclusion.
So I think one of the hardest things in Gaelic games, when you're talking about matches that are about to be played, whether it's your own club or your own county, I think it's a really exceptionally difficult thing to do, to separate emotion and reason and work out who's and not going to win. So the way I'll come at this one and calling it is to say that the last time Offaly played in O'Connor Park was against Down, in a game that if Offaly had won it, they had a great chance to be promoted to Division 2. And Offaly got a kicking from Down. They were schooled by Down when it came down to it. And that's the last time they played on that pitch. So I will be really interested to see if Offaly footballers had a kick after that experience. However, as Maurice pointed out, I did tip slightly Longford to beat Offaly the last day, so I'm going to stick with that in hope that I repeat my failure of the last day, and I'm going to tip Meath, who are middle of Division 2. Meath are a middle of Division 2 team, and Offaly have been a middle of Division 3 team, so I think the logic says that Meath will win.
Paul, can I say one thing on that? Just there's a total fallacy. We're making predictions here on a Sunday. What will make this a lot more interesting is if Thursday or Friday morning when we see the 26s, like whatever chance you would have given Fermanagh when you saw the 26 come and no Sean Quigley in it. I think that was like I thought they were really unfairly criticised on the BBT in particular on Saturday. But I still think that when we see 26 for this game in particular, you'd have a lot more better sense of how that game will go.
Okay, let's talk about the Munster Championship. Kerry, Tip, Morris.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw Declan Brown talking after the Tipperary game.
I thought it was a brilliant interview.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, I thought it was really honest. But when you've got a sector coming out and saying we've got no hope in the next game, I think it gives you a fairly damning indictment.
But he said straight out, we're not going to win.
Yeah, he did. He also said it was a free shot, and I think there's no harm in, like, why would you dress it up as anything different? I think there's and less than that is kind of, would he be patronising to his own players or to us? So. But it doesn't mean
it doesn't mean they're not going to try and get something out of the game. But he's just saying it straight out. Like Tipperary relegated from Division 3, playing the All Ireland champions. There's no point in. I've remarkably enough, I'll tip Kerry as well. James.
Yeah, look, Kerry to win this at their ease.
Yeah, Malachy.
Yeah, I would obviously expect Kerry to win it. And it'll be interesting to see if they have any newcomers. You would expect maybe that they'll have 2 or 3 maybe new faces. I suppose that's something they'll be trying to do, to maybe shake things up a wee bit and freshen things up. So expect them maybe they have a couple of newcomers in there, and you would think that should be a comfortable victory for them.
Clare Limerick in the other semi-final, Morris.
There's a bang of Roscommon Mayo off this for me. I think a lot of people had Clare penciled in to be Munster finalists straight away after the Cork game, and Limerick are looking back on. There's 2 sides to this Limerick. There's Limerick who were carved open by them. They lost by 14 points in the league when they were already relegated. There's also the Limerick that bet them last year in a Munster Championship on penalties. I had an interview with Mark Fitz which has been the Examiner this week. Went on to meet him in Cork, and I think, but since the fallout from the Red Empty stuff, Limerick have shaken it up. They've brought in a member of their stats team last year, has come on into their backroom team. They've got a good bank, solid work done. So I expect this game to be a lot closer than a lot of people think, but I still think Clare will win it.
Yeah, I think exactly the same way. James.
Yeah, again, it's Morris said it all there, but since Ray Dempsey's left, there was obviously unrest there. Their league campaign was whatever it was. But what's happened since then? It can be a great rallying cause and all that kind of stuff. And players unite, and they need to show now what they're capable of. Because the management have gone or whatever. So that can be used as a great motivational tool. I suppose I don't think it'll be enough against Clare though. I'd strongly back Clare. It could be scary. It could be scary, and tight enough. But I do expect Clare to come through.
Yeah, it'd be the same. And that Clare, in fairness, have shown great consistency over the last number of years, and would seem to be a wee bit ahead of Limerick. And you would expect them to come through, but I'm sure it would probably be fairly tight. But I would think they'll come through by a few points.
In matchups of that weekend, Paul, if you're looking for matchups to watch out for this weekend, watch, I'd say, Podge Collins and Keane Sheehan running after each other with Vanny Mantoy. They'll cover a marching ground in that game. I think that the 2 of them chasing after them. Podge Collins and Malachy O'Rourke was good, but this could be box office.
This is going to be player cam, is it? This is to put the thing around. The Roscommon Championship, Morris, Sligo, New York.
Sligo for me. The soundings from New York, I think I did get a bang of we're happy with our lot, to be honest, off the now maybe that's they're setting another trap here, but I definitely got the sense after the last game. I think they didn't go back training until the following Friday. They're flying on a Wednesday. Even that turnaround itself is tricky. The fact that they're dealing with the ordeal of travelling that Leitrim dealt with last time. So I'd say Sligo.
James?
I think New York, I think it's been chaos since the victory, and victories like that can be hard to deal with, particularly your first championship win, and from the Sunday game right through to every paper and every blog or every podcast you've seen New York players on it. So there's a huge I suppose connection of that, huge emotion of that. They're involved. Will they be able to on the flight over get together and get settled and put in a performance like they can. I'm not sure they'll be able to. I think Sligo will be too good to get into a Connacht final, to get into the All-Ireland series. Connacht or Sligo they'll be humming for this game. They'll have the scare that, because they've had a few battles with Leitrim over the last few years, so they'll know that New York aren't a bad team. They'll know that, but they'll be able to make sure that that'll just sharpen them up, I think. And look, I expect Sligo to come through.
Malachy.
Yeah, I think if Sligo would have had to travel, I think it would have made it more interesting. But just as the boys say, I'm sure New York, it was a massive performance and a massive occasion for them, and I'm sure they've enjoyed it. And they'll come over, they'll make a good account of themselves. But I just would think Sligo, if you look at their trajectory, they're gradually improving. Tony McEntee has been there now, maybe is it 3 years he's been there. And this is a big game for them. They really need to be winning this and making no mistakes and getting to a Connacht final. So I think they'll make sure that they don't slip up in this one. So I'd expect them to win.
Yeah, same here. I think it's a real pity New York didn't have one more week. If they had one more week, it might give them a bit more of a rattle at it. But I also do still think they'll have a rattle in the Tailteann if this goes the other way. So finally, up to Ulster. We'll start with Cavan Armagh, Maurice.
Yeah, I say Armagh and I say down in the other game.
Okay, Armagh down. James?
Yeah, I think Cavan could sneak it. I'm not sure of Armagh how fluid they're going to be. I think Down will with the upsurge that's in Down at the moment. I think they'll come through Donegal and what the state they're in.
Malachy, the two winners there.
Yeah, again, Cavan. There's no doubt Cavan home venue. It's going to mean a lot to them, and they'll be praying for it. I just feel that Armagh really need it. And I think, if they get their best performance, I think they should have a wee bit, in hand over Cavan. So I'd expect Armagh to win it, but they'll certainly get a scare. And on the other one, as I said earlier, I just think that the problems Donegal have had, it's very hard just to keep everything on an even keel. And when things aren't perfect in the background, and it's very hard to get momentum when things are like that. And just Down might have Down probably just probably again on a sort of an upward trajectory at the minute, and I think they might just win that one. Yeah,
I think it'll be Armagh and Down as well. Before we finish, I think so we're well into Sunday evening, late into Sunday night at this stage. I read, Malachy, that after Monaghan's victories or after the various victories that you leave the players at it. Is that right?
I've heard that myself, and then sort of that story grows legs, and then people do ask me now when I've been with teams and lucky enough to celebrating teams, they ask me, "Are you not supposed to be going home at this stage?" No.
Will there be a party in Monaghan tonight?
I'd say there would. All right, no. I don't know where that one came out of. Certainly,
But like, do you think like managers going out with teams? Do you see any issue with it? No problem.
Look at it. It's my own personal opinion. After you win championship matches, and I wouldn't be big into hanging about half like that. But when you win the trophy or something like that, I do think it's good. I just feel that it's important that sometimes that when you're over a team, you have to keep a certain distance, and I always feel it's good to see the players see that you're human like everyone else, and you can have a bit of crack and let the hair down. Even if you haven't got much of it, but I think it's good, and the boys enjoy it as long as obviously it doesn't go too far or anything like that, But
where did you stand on that, James? Where did you stand on that socialising with players?
It's a tricky one. Usually if you got to celebrate victories, particularly in I think the GA. There's definitely so. I'd usually, if we're going for drinks, I'd go for 1-2, and I'd sneak off then with some of the other management team into a quieter location and let the players go. It'd be something along those lines. So yeah, it just go out and mark the moment, and then scuttle out the side door fairly quickly. Yeah.
That's very sensible, lads. Very proud of you. Very sensible.
That usually happened. Usually.
That's for public consumption, I know.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Once we get off this call, we can get the truth out. I'll release it next week. I'd like to thank Larry Ryan for running this podcast as well, to Adrian Russell, to Raf Rocca, to Jack Neville, to Tony Lean, and to everyone at Examiner Sport. A huge thanks to Malachy O'Rourke for joining us this evening. I'm still at a loss to know which of the 4 counties in Ulster he was shouting for over the weekend, but we'll leave it. Well, I know man, of course, but a huge thanks to James as well, James Horan, for joining us today. To Maurice Brosnan, Bimich Harnashka Lua, Gurmil Magriff.
A grain of rice. A grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Come on, Mayo. You've got to get Andy Moran into the game.